So, yeah, we're live. This is not a place I thought we would be. This is not a conversation I thought we would have. I understand that a lot of people will consider this hot takes, but the problem is none of this is new. I've got a couple people that are going to pop in and say hello. First, for everybody who's just watching live now or replay, make sure you click the like and subscribe button and share this on your Facebook or your Twitter or your Instagram or whatever, because this channel has grown quite a bit. And the reason it has grown is because people have been sharing who we are. People have been sharing these resources. People have been sharing the conversation. And that makes me feel great. This channel talks about a lot of things. We talk about world travel, not just my life in Brazil. We talk about money, my personal favorite subject. And we talk about social issues. And this is a social issue / world event that it's got me feeling awkward. Well, good evening, Franciele. Yes, this shall be interesting. Yeah, this shall be very interesting. To fill in what some people already know, let me do this first. Let me introduce everybody. First, I'm going to start out by saying hello to David, who's got his name in English and in Greek because he's a polyglot, learning many different languages. And I got to start off before Dave goes into the who and the what. I have to apologize to you, Brother David. I called you an alarmist. I said, some of the things that you're predicting or looking at, that's just an alarmist point of view. Because I think it'll get bad, but I wonder how bad. And I was wrong. Dave may have underestimated just how bad shit's gonna get. Welcome back, Dave.
Well, the reason that I am an alarmist and a proud alarmist is because I have seen a 3-alarm fire brewing for the last 20 years. And when I look at the United States history, I look at a country of a work in progress. I look at a country that went through the horrors of slavery. Then we went through Reconstruction, Jim Crow, social unrest, political assassination of a president. We have gone through a lot. We have participated in every kind of war that you can imagine. Good gracious. I mean, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea, military actions, police actions, which I participated in. I was just simply an overpriced mercenary for George Bush. And so I've seen a lot of turmoil of my beloved country. And this is not a surprise. What surprises me is that people are surprised. People are surprised that people would run into the state capitol, the Congressional Senate and Congress, and with Thor outfits on and tear it up and brag about it all on the internet with little or no resistance from the police, from apparently some of the police, not all the police. And especially now that we have the resignation of the U.S. Capitol Police and investigations being called for. And for the Congress and the Senate to be cowering in a room while they're being ransacked by people jumping up and down, hollering and screaming and carrying Confederate flags and taking stuff and taking laptops and acting a fool, and people are surprised. I don't understand what the surprise was. Rioting and tearing stuff up, whether it's a Wendy's, Target, Walmart trying to take flat screens in a flood, or ransacking the White House. And ransacking is a part of American culture. And as Chris Cuomo said, I quote, "This is who we are. We are a country of might makes right." I yield the floor.
Hold on. We got to let some other people get an introduction in, because, I mean, that.
You got the floor, YusefWateef.
No, you know what? Let me first. Where are you, Dave?
I'm not in DC. I'm happy about it. I'm in Michigan.
All right. Brother
Oh, we
Brent
just had a
Allen.
bomb threat at the state capitol of Michigan. Just had a bomb threat that closed the whole state capitol down.
Brother Brent Allen, give us your first hot take before we really get into this, and tell everybody who you are and where you are.
Okay. So I'm Brent Allen. I'm in Dallas, Texas. And so I'm a data scientist by trade, Six Sigma and lean expert. So like Benjamin, I was in the military for 14 years. I was a lieutenant commander in the Navy. And my take on this is I agree a lot with what Benjamin said, but there's some things I don't agree with. And this country, we've gone through a lot, but I do agree that this has been expected. This is nothing new. This has been part of our history since the very founding, from Indian Wars to Bloody Kansas to everything that's happened recently. So I don't understand why people don't think that this isn't part of who we are in our culture at the moment, or have been throughout history. So it's, in my opinion, I think it should have been very expected that people should have seen this happening. But I think also there's a seething undercurrent of just distrust and hate for other people instead of just trying to talk and understand each other. And unfortunately, I don't see that gap being bridged anytime soon. I think it's more about people want to hate each other and fight each other rather than talk to each other.
We got a couple interesting quotes already. First, men need knowledge. He's been a long-time supporter now. You know, I hope we're all healthy. I'm healthy because I'm not in America. So, and
wow.
Look what he said. This was Trump's grand exit. Isn't that cute? Rod, tell us where you are and give us a quick hot take before I give you guys a couple bullet points that I've written down earlier today.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So the name's Rod Moore. I'm actually in the state of Maryland, literally 30 minutes away from DC. I'm a government contractor, working on a lot of web, design, server type stuff. Also do a lot of stock market trading, things of that nature, Forex. As far as the topic of what's going on, like my man said, I'm not surprised at what's going on at all. Like KRS-One, I think his name, KRS-One said, you can never have justice on stolen land. So, I mean, this was bound to happen. It took a little longer than, it's expected. And people are seeing the blatant hypocrisy of, like, if this was another group of people, they would not have made it past those steps. They would not have made it into Capitol Hill. They would not have been able to break the windows. They would not have been able to go to the Senate room. The one guy had the nerve to go into Nancy Pelosi's office, pose, take pictures. Like, all this stuff is just it's to be expected, but at the same time, it just shows a blatant double standard as far as like how others are treated versus like how quote unquote Americans would be treated. So it's interesting to see. It's very blatant now. So I mean, all these talks about all lives matter, blue lives matter, all those talking points are pretty much mute at this point.
Wow. Well, you said something. This is like a hydra with many heads, and we can attack it from every place. But I want to pivot on something you said. Interesting, like this. You said a guy went into Nancy Pelosi's office. Now, I've got some pictures that I took from online, and think of this. Ready? A guy goes into Nancy Pelosi's office, right? And takes a picture in her chair in front of her still open computer. With me? What's on that computer? Could we have just had a breach? Could we have just had a situation where whatever was on that computer, what if he decided to just take a quick screenshot? Think about that for a second. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, and on top of that, a lot of people are using the president's tweet against him because remember when when Black Lives Matter did a peaceful protest, wasn't him who said you know any kind of federal crime of this nature is you get 10 years minimum for. So you got a lot of people who are eligible for that 10-year minimum sentence. If you look at that whole video. So I wonder if any of those people are going to do that 10-year sentence. The guy took the podium.
Here's the thing. I believe the answer is yes. And I'll tell you why. I believe that even more than doing that 10 years, I think things are going to get interesting because I made a prediction that was wrong. I said, I think no security guard, nor I don't know what you would call the people who guard the White. I don't know if they're Marines. I don't know if they are
U.S. Capitol Police under the Department of Treasury, part of the Secret Service.
Okay. I thought there would not be a situation under which they would shoot white Americans.
Now, wait a minute.
Well, and guess what? I was just sent a video of them just plugging somebody. Now, it's
now we got to be sophisticated because the initial analysis, of course, is to paint these pictures of just simple explanations. But okay, so I know you did not believe that police would not shoot white Americans, being the fact that this country fought a civil war where whites basically fought each other to death for a variety of reasons.
That was a totally different time period.
World War I, World War II. I mean, I got the evidence is on and on. But what you can say in respect to Rod's comment, the optics of what happened between the Black Lives Matter protest and this protest is a problem because it looks simplistic. It looks as the case like, hey, if you have protests of people of color, there's this overwhelming military police response no matter what they do. And then do you have people who are white? There's this lackadaisical kumbaya kind of like, let's, calm everybody down. That is a serious problem, and that the world is asking right now, and the United States will have to answer for that. Now, we don't know the specifics. To give the benefit of the doubt, we don't know the specifics, but the optics 100% supports Rod's analysis. I think it's more sophisticated than that. I think there are layers. I think we have to talk about first where there's some complicity from the United States, from some of the police officers. But the thing I wanted to bring up, and I'm glad Brent is here, what we have to understand as all of us is that we have to be concerned about the absolute security of the United States of America, because we know that every activist group has been infiltrated by foreign actors, from Black Lives Matter to white supremacists. So we know that I'm not trying to say Black Lives Matter. I'm not trying to compare and all that. I'm just saying that we know that there are foreign actors. There are countries out there that hate the United States, whether they're valid or not, who want to see death, mayhem, and destruction. And if it was that easy for people to get into the Capitol and tear it up, what would happen if we had some serious trained military from other countries who were able to seep into these crowds and cause real mayhem and destruction? So people have to be concerned about what is the protection security level of this country. Because right now, I'm going to say this, I'm going to put it out here, and I'm glad Brent's here because he's ex-military, I'm ex-military. I served in both the Army and the Navy for a total of 11 years. Right now, I see the United States losing a war with any country that can push back because of our inability to make sense of anything right now, because of our, as I say in colloquial terms, because we are just acting a damn fool, from pandemics to everything.
Now watch this. Dave, you just said our national security. I'm going to share with everybody a video that was shared with me. Let's see, where is it? I'm going to share it. I'm going to leave the volume up. It gets kind of loud. Okay, can everybody see this? Yeah?
Yeah,
this is where the woman got shot.
Yeah.
Right? She got shot and drug out.
Yeah.
So
now you ask about our security. A bunch of what we believe to be untrained civilians overran the government building. But I don't want to cut Brent off because you directly addressed him. Brent.
So first of all, David, I owe you an apology because I called you Ben, and I'm sorry. I got a brain fart on that.
Oh, no worries.
I'm sorry about that. So as I see it, from a naval perspective, we're pretty dominant. There's no other force in the world that can compete with us on a naval power project.
Well, I'm talking about asymmetrically.
Okay, asymmetric, that's different. And when it comes to hacking and things like that. But from my point of view, is our threat primarily is internal versus external at the moment. And I think it's much more on a cultural level because politics is downstream of culture. And that's how I look at it, because I think we have a huge cultural divide and the perception of people's values isn't the same. And so that feeds into asymmetric warfare, feeds into cultural warfare. It feeds into systematically degrading the power of the United States, because there was a time in the 80s and 90s our biggest export was culture, between music, clothes, movies. Everybody wanted to be part of the United States and wear anything that was part of the United States. Now, not so much.
Rod.
Yes.
I didn't know if you had what they did.
Oh, say that one more time. Your mic was cutting in and out.
Okay, I didn't know whether or not you had any input on what they did. Although even the game he had a CSC system was locked or even off. Brother Nathan, I'm not military nor government, so I don't understand what a CAC is. Can anybody tell me? Depend on that.
It's a card. It's your ID.
Common access card.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like it's like one of those PIP cards that you use, like if you work for the government or your military. It's a card that you probably put in your computer for access and things of that nature. But
so Nancy Pelosi's computer had been compromised. She had that.
Yeah. So but
we have to.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, we have to ask the question, and you know me, I'm the alarmist. I'm going to take it another level. We have to ask the question: is Donald Trump an actor for a foreign entity?
Oh, come on, David! No way. Come on, man.
Okay, I had to take it there.
You know, he may be an asshole and not know anything about.
Well, maybe he's an asset,
but he's not a foreign actor.
Well, now here's the thing. I disagree with Nathan here. What Nathan said is that oddly enough, and unwittingly, President Trump had widened the crack in America. Now, here's the thing. I don't think he's a foreign actor, but I don't think he did it unknowingly. He did things in his presidency that I don't know everybody was ready for. When I wanted him to become president, I did it because I wanted him to expose America. I thought he would run the presidency the way he ran his businesses. I take all the picture, get my name out in front, and let other guys who know what they're doing in the background kind of just run the ship while I look pretty on the camera.
Did he just expose what we've already? Maybe these underlying issues have been simmering for years, and Trump just pulled the Band-Aid off.
So I have a more provocative question than that one. Do you think it started in the Trump presidency or in the Obama presidency?
Oh, before that.
I'd say way before that.
Oh, before that. Okay.
Way before that.
Oh, this has been simmering. This has been simmering for years. We have had, first of all, we have whatever side you play on, we have the historical problem of post-Reconstruction racial kumbaya that we've never ever settled. What we have is what I call barbershop talk. You go to your barbershop, you talk crap. I go to my barbershop, you talk crap. And then we all put on a pretty face at the job and at the work. But we really have these simmering underlying differences that have really never been addressed. We've never had that conversation. So that's a big issue. Then we have the immigrant issue, which is another simmering issue, which has just been kept under the table. Political correctness. Hollywood has kind of painted this kumbaya thing. So there are a lot of issues when it comes to inequity, economic disparity, racial issues. There's these big underlying issues that have been simmering and boiling for years. And people have been able to put Band-Aids and little caps on it. And this is just boiled over because Trump has only been in office 4 years. This is something that has been brewing for years. We can go back before Trump. We can go back to Jimmy Carter before that, to where we have these issues that have never, ever been addressed. They've never been talked about. We can't have honest conversations without people getting bent all out of shape. And so this is the problem. If we're going to survive as a country, as he says, the degrade of the United States internally in terms of culture, then we're going to have some hard, hurtful, painful conversations that are needed to advance to the next stage, because rhetoric and performance and show and tell and entertainment is not going to gloss over this time. We're going to have some real conversations about where we are as a country culturally and where we're going. And those conversations, I don't think people are ready to have.
No, I mean, to piggyback off your point, I think these are issues that have always been there. It's just that Trump emboldened the people to, they were like, okay, so we know we got one of us up in there. Now we feel a little bit bolder to be who we really are and just show to the world who we really are. So I think it's all, like you said, it's always been there. It's just that Trump was the one who kind of made them feel more comfortable to just show it off.
Well, here are some things that I took away from what's happened yesterday. First is we saw how poor, let's just take the response. We saw how poor the response was. What does this result in? Because remember, we've seen pictures of, air quotes time, other nations having people go in and run through the streets and, you know, take over the Capitol. And we always thought, you know what, those are for those other lesser nations. Now, all of a sudden, it's happened here. And I can already hear the excuses being cooked about why it's okay, why it's different. I don't think we understand governments fall. Let me say that again. Nations fall. But no nation has ever had as much information about the past as we do now. Yet, do you think the United States will ever say, you know what, maybe we should take a look at it? Let me give you guys a couple of images that popped up. Here's one. I was talking to a gentleman earlier. Do you remember, I think it was Bolivia, where a guy they broke into the house and threw the president out and they were ransacking and stuff. You have people breaching the Senate floor, taking selfies. I mean, how does that happen? Usually, everybody believes that they're special. Everybody believes their country is the one for whom the people remain complacent. You have a three-way army of economic disparity and racism that go back generations. We're under quarantines under a virus issue. We've got a government arguing over whether or not they'll give people enough money to actually live while they're not allowed to work. We have a president who incites riots. And all those things come to bear at the same time. How do we expect that to not happen? I mean, look at that picture. Look at that picture. And by the way, I do believe there are going to be massive arrests. I believe that. No, I don't think so. People, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. These people, no government, be it a demagogue government or a so-called democracy, can afford to let that stand. A lot of these guys are going to wake up thinking they're still in DC and they're going to be in Gitmo. And people are going to be asking questions like, who's your leader? I don't have a leader. They'll probably believe him, but at the same time, I think there will be a lot of the modern day equivalent of public crucifixions.
No. They're going to arrest the leaders, but they're not going to arrest the common guy who jumped up and down on the table. No.
Yeah.
Nobody? I'm alone on that then. I'm alone, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, you're saying that there's going to be massive arrests. The FBI is going to swoop down and do this and do that. I mean, no, this is not a television show.
Are you talking about massive arrests as in politicians?
No, of the rioters.
That can be individually recognized from facial recognition technology, doing selfies.
You don't need technology. They've already been identified on Twitter.
Yeah, there was one guy who was carrying a podium. He took a picture waving at the camera while he was taking the podium.
The YouTuber Baked Alaska has done this before. He opened about it. He's talked about it. He was on the phone. He was on Pelosi's phone talking. He's been arrested for these type of activities. There's nothing going to happen to him. He's been doing this for years. The guy with the Thor hat on or whatever, the Viking hat, he's another well-known YouTube agitator. These people are known. These are not people that require facial recognition or central intelligence pages. These people are on Facebook.
I agree, but have they ever broken into the Capitol before? Have they ever committed this level of federal?
They have talked openly about doing this on different platforms,
yes,
on social media platforms for months.
Arrested for talking. It's not the talking part that gets you.
It's called intelligence. When you say that I'm going to storm the Capitol on the 6th, that is something that the government can use to move on you.
Yeah.
But the question is, will they? I don't.
No. Some people will, not everybody. No, some people. This guy here is actually this guy here has been identified. He's actually a doctor.
Interesting.
Him and his wife.
Introduce yourself, Escrow. Introduce yourself.
Oh, how y'all doing? My name is Escrovan. How y'all doing? I'm sorry I'm late. I came in kind of late. I came in the house, took a shower real quick, jumped in the shower. That's why my hair is all frizzy. But how y'all doing?
Oh, good evening.
Yes. But yeah.
And it's just a terrible situation to realize that. Okay, hold on a second. We got a couple comments that I want to. I have my friends all over Brazil saying very sad and worrying situation. Hi guys, good night. They're like, hey, feel bad for your country. Your country is going through some real shit right now, kind of like everybody else's did. And what do we have here? Our entire government was complicit. They all knew it was coming, and none of them prepared for it. Hey, you know what? I think their complicity also intersected with their foolishness, because we had people in their offices on the ground with gas masks.
Yeah.
Well, there's going to be some investigations. I'm sure there's going to be some heads rolling. There may even be some. He put the chair on eBay for $100K. See, this guy, Mr. Vlog 85. That's what I'm saying, Yusef. They already know who these people are, and the government announced, the Attorney General announced that they were going after the leaders. So they're going after only certain people who they felt led the movement. They're saying, so they're already making excuses as for who are they going to process. So I don't see them doing massive. The guy with the Confederate flag, he probably will never, ever be arrested or charged with anything.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that, but that's just that's my feeling. It's reality.
So I have a question. What was the whole, because I've seen, I don't know if it's true, but I saw on social media that a lady was killed. Like, what was all of that about?
She was.
We showed that earlier. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
She was shot. She was a 14-year Air Force veteran. I forgot her name. She was shot. She was the one on the video that could be seen trying to climb through the window. And she was shot in the chest, and she lost her life probably at the scene. And there were three other people that died, that not getting shot, but they either had heart attacks or it was a stressful situation, and they died because EMS couldn't get to them in time. So it's unfortunate for anybody to lose their life. Especially, and the thing is that there are some people in that crowd, in that group, who really believe the rhetoric. They're not sophisticated. They're like, man, my country's being taken, and they are passionate about what they believe, and I can respect that passion. But when you're guided and being led into a death trap like that, and being led into acting a fool, that's when I have a problem with the people that are directing about it. So Ted Cruz, our beloved senator from Texas, he needs to back up. Jay Hollisworth from Missouri, that's challenged Pennsylvania, he needs to back it up. And our political leaders are responsible political leaders, and especially the Republican Party, which used to be the business party, used to be the party of respect, used to be the party of law and order. They really need to check their own people. They need to really check them and say, look, we can't become what we argue against. They really got to check their own people and not be so scared of Trump, and check their own people, saying, hey, enough is enough. I actually, believe it or not, when you have Senator Lindsey Graham give a speech that you stand up and clap for, this is a strange day in America.
So you don't think there was any election fraud or anything negative that happened in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Illinois, Arizona? You don't think there was anything fraudulent there?
You're going to be surprised. I do think that it was fraud. I do think there was some fraudulent issues. I personally do, because the numbers just didn't make sense to me. I think there were some issues. However, the forum to do this is, what do we do? What are we going to do? We're going to go down to Detroit and we just going to beat the people up and blow them up and put pipe bombs in there. How are we going to kidnap the governor of Michigan and put her on an island and put a noose around her neck? How do we deal with this?
Wait, go back, Dave. Tell them about the governor of Michigan conspiracy. Tell them about that. Tell them about what happened.
I mean, how do we deal with this? How do we deal with fraud? Because look, Brent, both parties are jacked up for me. For me personally, both parties I have no vested interest in any of these parties. I had 8 years of Democrats in Detroit is the same. I have 8 years of Republicans the same. We have a Republican, Flint, the water's bad with a Republican, Flint, the water's bad with a Democrat. Nobody cares about these poor people that live in the city that don't have a lot of money. America's always been for the rich, the most powerful, and the elite. And that's my personal position. So, of course, there was fraud. Of course, there was funny business. And it's been like that for every election. Well, how do we deal with that? Do we run around and break into the Capitol with zip ties? What are you going to use a zip tie for? And firearms? Are we going to tie the people up? Do we go and chase down Mike Pence's family and say, where's Mike Pence? Do we beat up innocent people? How do we handle this? How do we handle the fraud? Do we have an insurrection? Do we do like Alan Weston suggests and Texas, Mississippi, and Alabama secede from the Union? What's the solution?
So I have a solution for you. The problem is it wasn't implemented. There was plenty of evidence in court and at the Supreme Court and have it adjudicated in a court of law. The problem was at every opportunity they were rejected, not because of the merits of the case, but because people didn't want to hear it. So if all
so what happened to the Trump-appointed Supreme Court judges, the Trump-appointed federal judges?
Their values continued at all?
Why didn't they do that? Trump appointed a lot of federal judges. There were conservative judges. There were Republicans. There were strongly right-wing Republicans that were judges in the circuit court, the federal court, and Supreme Court. Why didn't they react?
Because they didn't want to, not because of the merits of the case. Because they didn't like him, and they didn't want to actually look in the
every appointee. So every
election.
So every Republican was on a conspiracy. Every single Republican, every judge, every Republican was on a conspiracy against Donald Trump. Is this a QAnon conspiracy?
No, I mean, not a conspiracy, but it doesn't take a genius to figure this out. The math is clearly pointing to it.
I'm opening the doors for you. I'm trying to understand that. Why did every conservative judge, every conservative clerk, why did the state of Georgia, why did Brian Kemp, what motivation did he get not to say, okay, hey, these 12,000 votes in Atlanta, we need to do a do-over? What was he paid off? Was he part of Antifa?
What's the consequence of actually saying in the United States of America an election was fraudulent? You think there's no consequences with the people's confidence in an election that it's tried and people are brought up on court and go to jail for that?
The election is already the fact that only 155 million people vote in an election is already proof that people don't have confidence in these electronic booths and mail-in ballots. Most people think the presidents are selected, not elected. So my question is that you had a Supreme Court with conservative, you had Clarence Thomas, you had the woman that was appointed by Trump. The Supreme Court never reacted. So were they all conspirators, part of the deep state or something?
The ones in the Supreme Court? Yeah, they were.
So they're all deep state actors.
They didn't want to take the case because they knew if they took the case, they would have to adjudicate it on the facts. And the facts, the numbers, the math, and the facts don't lie. There was significant fraud in this election.
So the entire country is run by a deep state mob, even Trump's appointees. Is Mike Pence part of the deep state?
To be fair, you do have a lot of like media attention goes into these cases or whatnot. So let's just say if a Republican, the Republican Senate would stand up and say, okay, this is an election fraud. You know how much media attention I would get and backlash I would, become. I'm just trying to see both spectrums of it, because Trump and I'm not a Trump supporter, but majority of the media goes against what Trump has did or said in the past. And even now, they want him off the office. So it would be a big backlash if the Senate or these people from these different countries that represent both political parties to stand up and say something. The news will be all over it. So I guess it's a safe face, protective image, in my opinion. I'll say that.
Well, wait a minute. I want to go back to Brent. I want you to play this out for me. What is the consequence if this was if voter fraud was adjudicated in a court of law? I'd like the consequences in your mind simply because it goes to the Supreme Court, and then what are the consequences after a judgment?
So let's say it went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court found that there was enough fraud and threw out votes, and the election changed and President Trump was elected. So do you think there wouldn't be violence in the street?
I don't think. What do you think? You think who? You think people would go to? You think people like the White House? Like what happened at the White House?
Yeah,
no,
because
the police and the military would have kicked their ass. No, because the police and the military would have whooped their ass.
Wait, the police. What happened yesterday?
No, they didn't do anything.
What happened?
They shot what? Look. If President Trump, if the Supreme Court said, look, this fraud in reverse, and 100,000 black people went up to the White House, they would have got their ass kicked.
Well,
we know that. Come on.
That way.
Come on, Brent. Come on, Brent. Brent, I'm giving it to you. Brent, I'm giving it to you. I'm saying fraud. I'm saying you're probably right. Fraud did exist. But you're telling me, you cannot tell me that there was 100,000 black men and women up at the White House that the military wouldn't have unleashed full force of the United States, of the Capitol Police, Secret Service, Bureau of Prisons, Sheriff's Department, Virginia State Police, Maryland State Police, DC National Guard, the New York National Guard. You don't tell me they wouldn't have kicked those people's ass and shot more than one woman? Are you telling me that?
It doesn't matter if they're black, green, or fuchsia.
Let's not go
that far, Brett. Let's not go that far.
Brett, you're going too far with it.
That matters. Let's not get crazy.
That's just the way it is.
Okay, so there's some parts I'm just gonna have to disagree with you there, because there's historical fact that MacArthur between World War I and World War II used the cavalry to overrun protesters in DC. And those were
talking about a different point in human history. That was before Twitter. That was even before Facebook. Shit, that was even before Facebook.
MySpace.
That was before MySpace. Using the cavalry to run down a bunch of civilians written about in a newspaper is a lot less impactful than watching a Capitol security agent put a hole in a woman that was climbing a fence, which she deserves to get shot. Let's be clear.
Okay, but then you're telling me that it's all selected based on what the media chooses to air. And then you have to completely account for media bias. Because I can show you with data from FBI data that white people are killed by far more than black people. I can show you.
But black people make up a certain percentage in the United States. It's a smaller percentage of black people in the United States than there are white people. So when you say that, you gotta take care of it.
Still, it's far greater. Far greater.
Let's do this because we like to have conversations as men who take things. What do we say? What is the quote we always put up about claims and evidence? So Brent, I know you're good with a keyboard. If you said that even taking into account per capita that blacks are shot less, even though they make up a smaller percentage, I just like you to show it to us. If you, here's the thing. If he said I can show you, I'll take him. Give him the opportunity to show us. That's how I look at it.
I got a paper from a PhD economist from Harvard, who is black, by the way, who did this several years ago. I can send it to you.
You talking about William Soule?
No, it's not Soule.
What's his name? Thomas Sowell?
Let me check. I don't know it off the top of my head.
So, like I said, if you can say you've got data to say that it is not, it's even accounting for the disproportionately smaller group, then I just like to see it. That way, there won't be an argument. We can choose not to like it. Men lie and women lie, but numbers don't. So.
Well, I have while there was certainly fraud, and I'm sure there was some funny business, like in every election, like with Al Gore and George Bush. I'm sure that was funny too. Yeah. It cannot be most of these elections have fraud, but you cannot tell me, like in Detroit, when all these rabble-rousers came from all over the rural parts of Michigan, came to downtown Detroit, and are surprised that a city that is 97,000% black. I live in a hyper segregated place. I don't even go out and see anybody else but looks like me. And you're telling me that you're surprised that they went all for Joe Biden? Black folks would vote for Joe Biden if he burned a cross in their yard. We're hopelessly Democrat. So why are people surprised that Philly and Pittsburgh and these urban areas and Atlanta, where it's 80% black, 90% black, 85% black, 76%, went all for Biden? Why are they surprised?
To be honest, and that's another thing, like with the whole voting thing, and I'm not going to go too far into it, but the fact that you have popular vote and electoral vote, just the fact that you have that alone, in my opinion, I'm like, okay, I'm not surprised that Trump beat Hillary. I'm not surprised Biden beat Trump because, regardless of what the people choose, I think they're already selected. Like David,
I'm surprised that he won because I thought he would never get out. I assumed that Trump would change the Constitution and have 3 or 4 terms. That's what I assumed.
Like someone commented earlier, Trump was a wild card. He was a disruption to the establishment. So I kind of saw them getting him out of there because he was neither a true Republican nor a true Democrat. He was just his own entity or whatever. So the fact that, like I was saying earlier, the fact that we have an electoral college who pretty much can override the popular vote, that alone tells you everything. Because remember when Trump and Hillary went head to head, Hillary actually won popular vote by millions, but Trump won the electoral
college. He won those states that were necessary for him to win. I mean, the electoral college is not a surprise. It's been around. It's part of the United States history. It's been around. I mean, we learned this in high school civics class, how the electoral college vote.
Yeah, so the fact that you have that system in place, I mean, I don't understand why it makes. So it surprises me when I hear a lot of people are shocked because, somebody wins by popular vote, but they still don't get in office. So, but that part is always kind of like you made me scratch my head. Like, if we got an electoral college, why are people surprised that they, like you said, they already got the president selected? So,
I have a video that I'd like for everybody to watch. Just take this for a second. It's only a few seconds long. Let me find it. I'm going to show you folks a video. And what I'd like to do is, hold on a second.
Hey, Yusef, the video is not showing. Is it supposed to be showing now or?
Hold on a second. I got somebody. Hold on a second. All right, so we have a new person on the. All right, hold on. There you are. All right, let's do this. I'm gonna show this clip, and because you're new, I'm gonna give you a chance to introduce yourself, who you are, what you're about, and you'll be the first person to give your opinion on it. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Did everybody see what's on the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, this is the day he should have called in sick.
So let's do this. Jaleel, tell them who you are, what you're about. I'm going to give you the full screen effect, and you can give the first hot take.
I want to first thank you for inviting me to your platform. I'm YusefWateef, known Yusef for several years, where we met in China. I actually am fluent in Chinese. I'm an entrepreneur, and my last 3 years of work, I've been focusing on law, government, and options for people like myself, what we'll call a Moroccan citizen, not a United States citizen. So back on this photo here, I actually seen this in China before it came out here. And what it looks like, it seems as if it appeared that they allowed him in. They knew the schedule. That guy who was there, they knew that he was a flashlight type security, and it was a setup based on other videos that I've seen. I think this was something that was scripted and planned, but more importantly, it was to send a message that these lower class U.S. citizens that are bombarding this particular U.S. Capitol is a distraction for something else. And I'll digress with that.
So let me ask a quick question then. When you say complicit, do you believe the guard was complicit in what happened?
No, he okay. Obviously had no idea, but his authorities knew. It's just that he was a pawn in a particular whole set of a chess.
Okay, so there's something I have to address real quick before we go any farther, because I've got a lot of stuff that's in the comments. And so I wanted to address something my friend Alyssa said, and I want to address her comment this way. This is not who we are here. The people who are here are not random people. These are my friends. These are colleagues. Everyone's going to be given a voice, and I especially like the voices of people who come from situations who are not mine. So while you're open to challenge any of us on the merits of what we say, that's not who we are here. You know, we are above this. Okay, and here's the thing. Anybody who's not open to all different points of view, I mean, you've got 6 people on the screen that I know personally, and I can tell you every one of us has stark differences. That's how I get smarter. And I've judged every man here on the merits of who they've demonstrated themselves to be. And that's it. So when we address each other, that's how we're going to do it. So let's go this way. Jaleel, so you said the people who were intruding, they were scripted, but the cop wasn't.
Yes.
Well, I don't think anybody's arguing that was a giant plan. We're going to go down there on this day and talk about it on social media. I don't think that that's at all at all wrong. Now, my question is, who remembers that old movie Tombstone, where Kurt Russell gets cornered by a bunch of people, the bad guy cowboys, and he pulls his pistol out and he sticks it in this one guy's head right next to him. And the words he said was, and I'm going to paraphrase, "You might hit me in a rush, but not before I turn this guy's head into a barn door." If that man, who is an armed, bad officer, had very immediately said, "Here's the line and the portal I'm assigned to protect. You might get me in a rush, but by making a clear example of the first man in line, let's see how many of you have the courage to rush me," because I don't think he understood how much danger he was in. I don't think he really understood. Mobs have beaten men to death with less energy than that. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm an extremist who wants to.
So for the group, Yusef, I sent you the paper by the Harvard economist. His name is Richard J. Fryer Jr. And the title of it is An Empirical Analysis of Racial Differences in Police Use of Force. And this was written in 2016, published in 2018.
Thank you very much for that link. I'll look at it later.
Okay, so can you tell me where I would look at it? Like what page to reference? Because I'll put it on the screen.
You can read the abstract. The abstract's pretty clear. So I was wrong. I thought it was more, but there's no statistical difference if you read the abstract. And that just gives you a really short abbreviation. It does say in non-lethal incidents, Black and Hispanics have a far greater percentage controlled for population than whites. But when it comes to lethal force by police, there's no statistical difference.
So let's do this. How about instead of me reading the abstract, because it's not my evidence, you can read the abstract. Let's see. Hold on a second.
Sure. I can read it. So here, so it's by Ronald J. Flower, PhD at Harvard. It's like, this paper explores racial differences in police use of force. On non-lethal uses of force, Blacks and Hispanics are more than 50% more likely to experience some form of force in interactions with the police. Adding controls to account for important context and civilian behavior reduces, but cannot fully explain these disparities. On the most extreme use of force, officer-involved shootings, we find no racial differences in either the raw data or contextual factors taken into account. We argue that the patterns in the data are consistent with a model in which police officers are utility maximizers, a fraction of which have a preference for discrimination, who incur relatively high expected costs of officer-involved shootings. So just a fancy way of saying there's no statistical difference when you account for all the factors and context for lethal use of force. And non-lethal use of force with police officers, there is a significant statistical difference.
So is what I just read and heard, does that say, as far as lethal, meaning you will be killed, Blacks and whites are killed at about the same rate. However, when it comes to abuse, beatings, all the assaults, you're 50% more likely to simply be assaulted by a police officer if you are Black or Black, Latino, Hispanic.
So I'm just going to say yes. I disagree with your use of words, but I'm just going to say yes.
Feel free to disagree with words you disagree with.
So I don't agree with the word assault because it implies the context that the person wasn't doing anything wrong. I don't necessarily know the circumstances of every incident, but it says non-lethal use of force. It doesn't mean the police officer committed a crime and assaulted a person of color. It just says Blacks and Hispanics are 50% more likely to experience non-lethal use of force by police.
Okay, so I believe, and this is as someone who is a professional editor and has a professional editing business, non-lethal use of force is a sentence that doesn't work. A use of force may be non-lethal, but it is not. Non-lethal use of force is a sanitized way that law enforcement has historically used to say, we didn't kill him, but we did everything else under the sun. The words non-lethal.
He only reading the abstract. We'd have to take the time to dissect the whole report, and I don't think
so anybody who wants the paper can catch me at YusefWateef@gmail.com. I'll send it to you.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, I think my point was that for a mass demonstration at the Capitol, the response would have been different from depending on who the crowd was. There's obviously a strong groundswell support for whether you agree with it or not. There's a strong groundswell support in law enforcement for the Trump presidency. That is not uncommon. I don't find it to be odd. I don't find it to be shocking. And so I would not be surprised if that, whether innocently or actively, that some police were, hey man, just let the people in and kind of get their steam off. While that was an unfortunate decision, I would not be surprised, because the narrative, whether it's right or wrong, but the narrative is right now that the right is pro-police and the left is anti-police. And with the rhetoric against police, because police are human, they're not robots. And I'm sure that, those police officers taking selfies or those moves that barricade, that some of those were sympathizers. There's going to be investigations, there's going to be firings, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm not surprised, because as a police officer, if you're an officer of the law and you have feelings and you are dealing with people who you deem are pro-police, and then you're dealing with people who you deem are anti-police, you're going to have a different reaction. That is a human reaction, no matter how much training you have, no matter how much Brazilian jiu-jitsu, no matter how many Gracie self-defense courses you take. That is going to be a human reaction. And I am not surprised that those officers acted in a less militant posture than perhaps other protests.
Here is the paper we just read from. There's a link in the description if anyone wants to get that paper. If anyone wants to get that paper, we can have an entirely different discussion on that. Also, this is a good time to remind everybody, excuse me, like, share, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet, we talk about a lot of different things. This is the social issue that we're talking about. A lot of times we talk about things that are a lot more fun, like living in Brazil and money. But everyone watching needs to make sure you subscribe and share this somewhere on your Facebook or Twitter. That's important.
I'm really interested in hearing Jalil's comments, because I know he's have a legal background. But in this country, we have historically have different tiers of citizenship. We have first-class citizenship. We have second-class citizenship. We have permanent residence. We have different classes. We have a caste system here. And that is just the history of this country. That's just the way it is. I know that as on paper that I have a right, well, that's debatable, but on paper, I have a right to do and go anywhere I want, purchase a home where I want, open up a business where I want. But I know the reality of it is that I cannot do everything and anything I want. I have to be careful. I have to be strategic. I have to understand, because I understand that we have different degrees of caste and class in this country. And I'd like Jalil, if he could respond to that, and then everybody else.
Yeah, thanks, David, for bringing that up. So the flag behind me is a Moroccan Empire flag. For those who don't know the history, you can look at the U.S. Constitution, Article 6, Clause 2. It talks about where powers are lies, and there's a section that talks about treaty. So if anybody understands treaty law, treaty law really trumps actual domestic law, because you have an international relations, whether it's bilateral or trilateral or just with many different countries. With this country, one of the laws that President Trump actually had brought up a month ago about Morocco, most people think that the Kingdom of Morocco is what he's talking about, but it was the Moroccan Empire that recognized the United States of America in 1777, then 1776, when they had the Constitution. So with this treaty, that treaty stands as far as the nationals on the land. So you have two different types of topics. One is the U.S. Capitol issue, and you only see the Democrats and the Republicans, those are United States citizens, but you really didn't see what they would call black people there. And then you hear a lot of people respond to what actually happened, but why wasn't all of the Trump supporters that look like me out there protesting? There's a specific reason, because we know if we go there as U.S. citizens, we're going to get shot. So on the other end, there is a transition going on now. And why I say about scripted, because somebody mentioned about it's not a distraction. I sent Yusef, you on a link here of a photo of The Simpsons, where that same character with the horns was there, and you connect it with the actual incident. How do you create a cartoon years ago, and all of a sudden it comes into effect? And so when we look at the scenario, we have to look at the history. What's going on? There is a shift because the United States is bankrupt. And there's a shift of power because we are occupied by the United States of America government, which is a cool people. It's just that you have the Democrat Party, who is not constitutional, like the United States Republic. They are the Democrats. But in the United States Constitution, you don't see the word democracy in there. So if you do a little bit more history, 1871, when the United States was actually incorporated, because in 1861, you had the folks that was having a similar issue about debates of who's going to control the slave. They walked out, so it became unconstitutional. You can check the congressional record. It talks about the 14th Amendment is unconstitutional. So to cover all that up, why I say that's a distraction, they let open the gates because they know there's going to be some drama. So, but what's going on? Tesla is now the richest person over the Amazon, Jeff Bezos. Then you also look at Bitcoin. That is also driving up. So what do you pay attention to? Do you pay attention to the drama down there? Or do you pay attention to the fact that they need surety to pay for the foreign interests that actually secure the corporation in order for them to be in operation? I'll digress with that.
I love it.
Hey, anybody made a mint off Bitcoin?
Not a mint, but let's just say I'm happy.
Now, you know what? I will look, and because Jalil brings up a good point about that, because I was stating I was on another forum, and Brent, you'll probably be interested. I was on another forum, and I said, there are professional anarchists in both of these camps. There are people who are in both of these camps, whether it be the right or the left, who are just professional anarchists. They just go to tear SHIT up. And they are, when I say they're professional, this is all they do. They're anarchists. They're people who don't believe in the rule of law. They don't believe in anything. They just believe, mob rule. Whether it was, and I'll give you a prime example. We had an organization in Detroit called Detroit Breathe. Detroit Breathe is an organization that protests every time there is an officer involved shooting. Now, let me paint the scenario for you guys of what's going on in Detroit. We're talking about black officers, black suspects. We're talking about black mayor. White mayor. We're talking about black police chief. We're talking about black lieutenant commanders. We're talking about black sergeants. We're talking about black female sergeants. And we had a case where a suspect pulled out a gun. He was being arrested for drugs, pulled out a gun, shot an officer, missed the officer point blank, and the officer shot him down. And this organization called Detroit Breathe came down and protested and tore half the city up. None of these people were from Detroit. Some of these people were just professional rabble rousers. They're professional people that protest and act a fool. And this exists on the right too. There are professional antagonists and people that act a fool. So I would not be surprised if some of these people are not going to be arrested. They're not going to be charged because for some reason they do this all the time and they get away with it. Why?
Well, I think one of it is that the ignorance of the public. Go ahead.
Francielli said, I was out for a bit. Trump just conceded that. Surprisingly, posted a video on his reinstated Twitter account. And Dave, were you just talking about the city of Detroit?
Yes.
Look what you just got. Hey, look, Vlock said that a while ago.
There are people who come and protest the city. They come from the suburbs. And I mean, I hate to, because I'm in I don't know if anybody knows about hyper segregation. You can look it up as a term. Only Chicago and Detroit and a few other places are hyper segregated. They're so segregated that you rarely see people outside your community no matter where you go. So I'm in a hyper segregated community. And whenever we have these shootings or these incidents with these officers, all of a sudden these kids from the suburbs come down and they're protesting and they're tearing stuff up and they're burning the windows down. And they're burning the White Castle down. Where are these people coming from? They don't live here. My suspicions. So to piggyback off what Jalil said and what you were saying earlier, Yusef, this is why I don't believe these people are going to be arrested. There's something going on in this country that is able to push the right and the left in any direction that they want and cause us to act a fool. and they prey on our already, because we haven't had those deep conversations. We haven't had those deep conversations. They prey on our internal prejudice and biases that we have, and they're able to push our buttons. And as I say, we have a tier caste system in this country. That's just the way it is. I'm not knocking America. I'm a proud vet. I represent the flag, blah, blah, blah. But we have a caste system in this country, and it has been this way since the founding of the country that has never been corrected. And while we have made improvements, at any time they're able to push this button and push that button, and guess what? You get the reaction that you get.
I want to.
Hey, YT. YT. No, I was just saying, I'm signing out, man. I gotta go. I'll catch y'all.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon. You know
Hey,
what?
man,
On that,
blessings to your family, man. Thank you.
On that quick interlude,
All right.
I want to show everybody that Donald Trump just posted something on Twitter. It's 2 minutes of him discussing. Now, can I ask everybody to give us 2 minutes to actually watch this? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that okay? Because this just came out. I want to see how this plays out. Let me show you guys. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
I would like to begin by addressing the heinous attack on the United States Capitol. Like all Americans, I am outraged by the violence, lawlessness, and mayhem. I immediately deployed the National Guard and federal law enforcement to secure the building and expel the intruders. America is and must always be a nation of law and order. The demonstrators who infiltrated the Capitol have defiled the seat of American democracy. To those who engaged in the acts of violence and destruction, you do not represent our country. And to those who broke the law, you will pay. We have just been through an intense election and emotions are high. But now tempers must be cooled and calm restored. We must get on with the business of America. My campaign vigorously pursued every legal avenue to contest the election results. My only goal was to ensure the integrity of the vote. In so doing, I was fighting to defend American democracy. I continue to strongly believe that we must reform our election laws to verify the identity and eligibility of all voters and to ensure faith and confidence in all future elections. Now Congress has certified the results. A new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power. This moment calls for healing and reconciliation. 2020 has been a challenging time for our people. A menacing pandemic has upended the lives of our citizens, isolated millions in their homes, damaged our economy, and claimed countless lives. Defeating this pandemic and rebuilding the greatest economy on earth will require all of us working together. It will require a renewed emphasis on the civic values of patriotism, faith, charity, community, and family. We must revitalize the sacred bonds of love and loyalty that bind us together as one national family. To the citizens of our country, serving as your president has been the honor of my lifetime. And to all of my wonderful supporters, I know you are disappointed, but I also want you to know that our incredible journey is only just beginning. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
That did not sound like him at all, but that was him. But I wanted to make a
quick question. Brett, we had someone who gave a quick quote from the paper you posted. Quatman just did a scan and said, even when officers' report civilians have been compliant and no arrest was made, blacks are 21.2% more likely to endure some form of force in an interaction.
right?
So
I'm scanning through the paper.
huh?
Right, I'm scanning through the paper. He posted something about very little data exists on explanation. So I'm trying to find that exact quote in here.
Well, here's the thing: if you guys want to have a discussion on that topic, we're more than happy to host it here.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment on that quote. So the people that he's referring to is black. Like when you look at case law, you have the Jude Scott case law. Yeah, you have a Jude Scott case law that the blacks would, or they would call Africans, were not supposed to be United States citizens. So they created the 14th Amendment to do that. So if you're acting in capacity of a U.S. citizen, you're going to be subjected because according to treaty law, you can be taken as booty and put on an auction block. And this is why most of our people are subjected to their codes ordinances. Usually the ones who were born here are supposed to be A1 class citizens. That is another nation that still exists on America. So if anybody who calls themselves that, you're going to be chosen to be picked on because this is operation of commerce. And all the rest of the world knows that. So they come here to make money and they go back. The only place around the world. It's designed for us to mix and represent ourselves, but we don't have we have not filled in the seat of the old government that used to exist that now is coming into light. So those who pay attention to what's going on in a public forum, like the public records of the court or the public legal notices in the newspaper, you'll start to see more information about the treaty. But I'm not surprised 21% are getting picked on because they don't know anything about law. If you don't know your rights, you have no rights.
Now, I got a question because 7 years after the Civil War, according to my research, Black Americans had made, or blacks, African Americans, you got me, I don't even know what term to use, had made tremendous progress. And then we had Reconstruction. So were there was a series of laws passed, or?
What happened is they left the old government that existed that recognized the United States because it was attractive to do, because, when you have a class system in any government, the people who are poor, who served, got rich under the United States. So they left that and went across. That's when the KKK was started and they pushed them back down. The Reconstruction period is what it is. They reconstructed history. So you have to go before the reconstructed period to see what they were hiding, and it'll make sense to now.
Yeah, but who started the Ku Klux Klan?
Oh, I'm in total agreement. We were all Republicans, and then somehow it flipped the script and we became Democrats. I even think that the Democratic nipple has is the greatest damage to the Black community ever. The programs, the dependency, the lack of entrepreneurship, the gimme the hat in your hand, all of that stuff is damaging. I'm just a Frederick Douglass guy. I'm not this other person. So I think that yes, absolutely. I was just curious because a senator, what's his name, of South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, quoted a case. I think it was Telford versus Hayes or something that enacted Jim Crow, and I'm just trying to figure out what happened to get into the situation where they legally were able to overturn after Reconstruction and then Jim Crow, and it had to do something with a compromise between the states and the federal government. I've always been, and I got to get clear on my history about that, but
I just wanted to put that up.
Yeah, so this was the photo that I was talking about.
Right. Yeah.
It's amazing how the Simpsons has predicted a lot of stuff for many years. It's crazy.
And one of the guys, or Matt Stone, I can't remember which one, he said that when they do the Simpsons, they always try to think of the most outrageous, not likely thing that could happen and make a cartoon about it, but then it happens and proves them wrong.
Now, to be fair, Yusef, that guy in the picture with the buffalo hat on, he's a professional protester. He's been in a lot of protests. him, Baked Alaska, and a few other people. These are professional anarchists. I guess they're right-wing anarchists. But these people, that's what they do for a living. They go to protests and they tear stuff up, and they're never arrested.
Well, if you look at, Yusef, I'm going to send you this PDF. It's called Silent Wars, Quiet Weapons. This was released, I would say, not released, but leaked from the FBI, what they were planning to do with the U.S. population. Doesn't matter if you're black, white, Hispanic. Huh?
How long is the video?
No, this is a PDF. This is they have a
Oh, 'cause if
PDF.
you give me the link where the PDF is, I can post it as well.
I just sent it to your WhatsApp. So when you look at this document that was created in the 60s, and it explains the crack pandemic, explains how the 70s is broken down, it explains the 1994 bill, it explains in 2001 how they're injecting subconsciously, not an overt amount of aggression against the United States citizen, but it's how do we actually take more control and make it a socialism state. And this is what they're using. And so you can see the behavior patterns from the young generation. Each generation, they have a different strategy. And the technology age was all about, now how do we control your finances so you don't have choices other than what they provide you. So this book is a good book.
I've heard of this book.
Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars.
Yeah, I've heard
And
of
David, to explain your theory about why we shifted from Republicans to Democrats is in 1933 when there was depression, the government offered solutions and people once again left their party to go take a handout, just like now, how were people waiting for $2,000 check. And at that, we're going to subject ourselves under their jurisdiction because they have closed the mom and pop shop. They have closed other options. And this is why people are worried because they're running out of options.
As much as I dislike Donald Trump personally, I have no bones and no imaginations that Joe Biden is going to do anything at all whatsoever other than run his big mouth. And this is the type of party and nonsense, unfortunately, that people have been under for years. This is part of the reason why we have this dissatisfaction. And so we went from one extreme to another. We went from a reality show now to a professional politician who couldn't get a job at McBurger King if he had to. And so, you know, this situation for us overall is going to be difficult to extricate ourselves, to get ourselves out of, because people are going to be expecting results in 2 years. Remember, in 2 years, you have another congressional election. And in 4 years, there's nothing going to happen because the Republicans and the Democrats have enough in each, even though the Democrats, quote unquote, supposedly run the House, there's enough minority whip and there's enough doubt to where they're going to hold up any kind of legislation. Nothing's going to get done. It's just going to be a mess. And I don't see really, until we have those key critical conversations that go back to the original founding fathers of this country all the way to today, there's not going to be a quick fix solution to this. The racial issue is not going to be fixed. The economic disparity is not going to fix. The legal issues, the statuses are not going to be fixed. This is going to continue over and over and over again until we literally tear ourselves apart. It may not happen now, but it could happen 20 or 30 or 40 years from now. And so far, with us having no ability to get to have any kind of serious conversations, we're going to continue like this. And unfortunately, I hate to say, for people, especially people of color who voted for Joe Biden, if you're listening to this, who voted for Kamala Harris, and you're crying right now, Lord, oh Lord, we got a Democrat in. I'm sorry, but your second classness is going to exist 4 years from now, just like it exists today. I'm sorry to announce that to you. Second class, and I said it.
And I want to add on to that point what he's saying, because there's some historical context behind it. Because way back in the day, we had a lot of slave rebellions where we had the white indentured servants and the black slaves to kind of come together to try to overthrow the government. So this has happened before. So what they had one of those rebellions, I think it's called Bacon's Rebellion. So they figured out that they were having the white indentured servants and the black slaves teaming up to overthrow the establishment. So what they had to do, they realized, okay, we're going to have to start implementing harsher punishment on black folks than we do on the white folks, because what would happen was if a black slave escaped, they would get life, whereas the white indentured servant would just get 10 years. So as David was saying, there's so many different levels of caste and, you know, color lines, like so many different levels of division that we've been purposely put on, that you gotta, to really get to the bottom of all this, you're gonna have to dismantle white privilege. That is the only way. That's the first and only thing that's gonna really start.
Jaleel, I need to do something real quick. Oh, hold on, who is that? I think that was Rod echoing. Just as I asked Brent before, will you read the preface of the document you sent me, Jaleel?
No problem. Wait a minute. Okay, the following document is taken from two sources. The first was acquired on a website, which I can't remember the address, listed as the source, the book titled Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper, Light Technology Publishing, 1991. The second source is a crudely copied booklet, which does not contain a copyright notice or a publisher's name, with the exception of the forward, the preface. The main thing that was missing from the first source was the illustration. As we begin to comparing the two, we realized that the illustration and the accompanying text, also mostly missing from the first, made up a significant part of the document. This has now been restored by lawful path, and so, as far as I know, is the only internet copy available complete with the illustration. We have no first-hand knowledge that this document is genuine. However, many of the concepts contained herein are certainly reasonable, important, and bear strong consideration. Want me to continue?
Yeah.
If anyone has any additional knowledge about the source of this document, has better copies of the illustration than the one posted here, has any missing pieces to this document, or has any comments which can be improved upon the quality of this document, we will appreciate your comments. You have the lawfulpath.com.
Okay. So yeah, this document, I put the link where you can get the PDF. The comment I put in that was part of the preface, and that's the other part of the preface with where you can get the document online. Quat Man asked an interesting question that I don't think we're going to get into tonight. What do you think about the Great Economic Reset? That's definitely something I want to discuss.
Yep.
Or the monopolies held by Facebook, Amazon, and Google that Congress is trying to break up. Those are two excellent topics. We won't be able to get into them tonight, but thank you for making a point for me to add.
That's a good show.
Yeah. Thank you for
so,
yeah.
Let me ask you this. Are there any solutions? I know Yusef says pack your bags and go live in Rio on the beach, but besides the beach, are there any solutions, or is this just a train wreck headed and every man for himself and every clan for himself? I mean, can we get to any solution, or is this just shit?
There's a solution. Like if you look at this, if you're here in America right now, what's happening is that people are creating smaller communities. They're going away from this corporate-like structure, how it was before 1929. So, Brett, what I would look into is go back into your nationality and then start looking at treaty law where you can get protection. I'm talking about everybody, because everybody. Because it's not a black-white situation. We're all human beings. It's just that we have to get protection based on nationality. So if you're Brett or David, you go back to where you're from, and there are treaty laws that give protection. For example, being a Moorish American indigenous person, the treaty it's called the Jay Treaty between the United States and Great Britain. And in that treaty, it says you can do what you want, but let the indigenous people flow. So if you look at the Civil War that happened between Great Britain and the United States, they never conceded. They mutually consented to stop fighting. Then there were British soldiers that were still here. They still have British nationality, a special class citizen that they don't advertise on the news, that they're not subjected to local ordinances. So if you're from Spain, you look at the Spanish treaty with the United States. If you're from France or you have any heritage, you look at the French treaty between there and the United States. And if you're American, you're looking at the Moroccan treaty that was set. All of these nationals can do business, but then you have to come together as a community, and then you fighting back whoever's trying to press us, which is outside interest. That's why the Chinese bought Biden. You know, they want control of our land. If these U.S. citizens remain dumb, that's free money.
I don't think there are any solutions. I think somebody quoted, "There's no solutions, only trade-offs." So we're going to be in order to get to that utopia that a lot of us think we can get to.
Right.
There's no solution. You're going to have to trade something in order to get something. So if you want to, like, say for example, you want to move to, out of the country, you're going to be giving up, that money making ability that you would have in the U.S. So that's why a lot of people who become expats or, globetrotters, we try to make our money in the USA while living our utopia lifestyle elsewhere.
I think that.
Well, hold on 1 second. Let's let Brett answer his what if he had a solution. And Nathan asked you a question, Jalil, we can get to. Brett's going to give his solution. I'm going to give my solution, and then we'll take it back to answer that question that Nathan asked.
So I'm with Rod on this one. I don't think there's a solution, or like honestly any good solutions. I think people are too far apart, and I think what's going to happen in the future, there's going to be a lot of fighting and a lot of blood in the streets, honestly. So I don't think that people are going to realize it, because like as Jalil pointed out, and I've seen this around the world, the value of life is valued differently around the planet. And people in the United States, they have not really experienced like any real conflict in several generations here, because everything's like, oh, it's all going to work out. It doesn't really matter. It's like, well, no, that's not the case, because people are going to eventually say, doesn't matter what you look like or where you come from. Somebody's going to say, enough's enough. I'm going to get my gun, and I get a bunch of friends that have guns. You want to stop us? Try it. See what happens.
That is a profound, sobering statement for the evening.
Now, I'm going to first address what Rod said, that I'm going to go. First of all, you said something about there are no solutions, only trade-offs. That I agree with, but you did say something I don't agree with about one of the trade-offs being money-making capacity. One of the things that I do, and for the people who don't know, I have a professional expat relocation service. I help people move to Brazil legally and get everything from visas that they need to Social Security numbers, the whole 9 yards. The one thing you don't have to trade off if you're an American is your money-making ability. The internet has put us in a situation where not only do you gain the ability to maintain a certain style of lifestyle, but to have that certain style of lifestyle, it costs you a lesser percentage of your actual salary. We can go into that on another conversation. I've had plenty of them. One of the things I do want to do is I'm going to show people this, because there are always going to be people who are interested in my solution. See, my solution is I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to lead an unhappy life. I'm not here to live with the stress that the United States has to offer me. I'm going to put a link to my LinkedIn in the comments here. So I always tell people, listen, the resume, great. Look at that. It's great. Tell them who I am. But the part that I want everybody to look at when they really consider if I'm going to leave America and do I want YusefWateef and his team to work with me, look at my references. These are people who know me, who have worked with me, and who can testify that I am who I claim to be. Now, having said that, my solution is I'm not going to have a stressful day. I'm not going to go through a day where I have to deal with law enforcement, agents of the government, rebranding myself. I just left while I was still young, strong, and could enjoy my life in a place where the trade-off is, I'm trying to think of my trade-off, because for me personally, because I've lived in 15 countries across 5 continents, I can tell you life in Sao Paulo, Brazil, actually better than life in America, because for the level of work that I do, I get so much more. With the trade-off, of course, I had to learn the language. Now, the other thing I will say to Brett, I think you assume too much of your fellow Americans, Brett. I think that men who are men of action tend to congregate together, but I want to be clear about this next statement. If anybody watching believes that the average American is going to put down the junk food, pick up a rifle, and risk getting shot on behalf of his country, that is a fantasy. It is a fantasy. The average American man of any race let me tell you something. We have three things that will always make us compliant in America. We have the best junk food, video games, and pornography the world has to offer. It will keep you fat and lazy. I promise you, the African American doesn't have the courage or even the desire to say, I'm going to pick this rifle up and I'm going to go full insurrection. I'm not even on that level. I'm a prepper. Call me crazy.
That's what
you can store a month worth of food. You think these people are going to live on the land with a rifle, washing off in a stream and in the snow to fight the government? These are not those men. Americans.
You know what? That's what the famous admiral that attacked Pearl Harbor said. He said the same thing, and it blew up in his face.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree with you.
I mean,
what'd you say, Brett?
I said that's what Saddam Hussein thought.
Yeah, we export this great image that American men are all strong and they got a pistol. Listen, the average American is something like 37 pounds overweight. The average American.
Well, you know, you should not. Come on now, you should. To be fair, it's not a big UFC fight now. It's technology, drones, brain power. It's modern weaponry. There's very little. I mean, now me and Brent have both been in the military, and hand-to-hand combat like Greek days, Roman days, ancient Kemet days. No, that's TV.
Here's the thing.
Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. Hold on. When I was in the Middle East, let me tell you how bad the U.S. Air Force does. We rolled in there and there was nothing but charred bodies in place. There wasn't no masculinity behind that. There wasn't no manhood behind that. It was a damn bomb.
That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I mean. I mean, the average American is not going to pick up a rifle and go full insurrection against the evil government.
It doesn't take the average American. It just takes a small critical mass.
That we're not critical mass. We don't have that kind of drive. Americans are never going to reach that critical
wait.
mass.
Let me interject. What you see on TV is not always real. I can tell you, my colleagues, especially, I have 3 brothers that serve in the Army and Marines. The bullets are being sold more than you ever know, and people with guns won't tell you. But you come on up. You'd be surprised who will stand up, because all it takes is one woman that somebody loves, and wars has gone over one woman. The American energy. Whoa, let me finish. The thing is that our people that in the government too have families that they might be attacked, and we will not kill our own families. I will tell you that much. Because I have a brother, he's giving me intel about a lot of stuff, and I know how to dodge it.
Look, Yusef, it's
you're not letting me be clear. The clarity I'm trying to add is I agree with both of you. To a foreign, if a foreign entity came into your house or on your land, you might have a higher number of Americans willing to actually pick up a rifle or a pistol. But if Americans identify their own government as being a bad government, they are not going to have the courage to stand up against that government. We are not people born into countries where hard is a way of life, so going against the government is just one more hard thing. That's not going to happen with Americans. And what you said about rifles, listen, I've never been in the military. I have low-level, fundamental rifle skills, fundamental pistol skills, fundamental shotgun skills. I don't need those anywhere else because I realized at a certain point, I had a theory. I could carry a pistol legally concealed in the United States. But I always had a theory that I was taught. It's called the surprise gun theory. Don't ever go any place where you think you might need your gun. If you need your gun, it should always be a surprise. Fair enough. Then as I developed as a man, I thought, why would I even want to live in a country where I would have to go places and think I needed a gun? So
come on.
Look at China. Look at China. You're talking about, safety, but they are now locking down 11 million people in the Northeast. You don't have a choice by the time you're unarmed. The thing is the fact that you could be armed, allow people.
I'm not talking about China. I'm saying the average American is not going to take up arms against their government. The average American does the discipline, the drive, the motivation to, and I don't mean the unaverage ones. There's always going to be a few, but that critical mass that we would need to make a government step back and take a pause, not going to happen.
No, Yusef, I disagree because America is very different in different parts, different regions of the country. Okay. And there are certain regions of the country where the people are more resilient, they're more independent, they're more independent minded. And we have the history of each one of these states and each region of this country. There's differences. And so there are some places that are heavily armed. The people are independent. They don't really need a lot of government interference. And there are places where people are totally dependent on the government. And that's just the differences in this country. It's regional, it's cultural, it's much more nuanced than just, you can't just say blanket the average American. Are we talking about Amarillo, Texas? Or are we talking about Clinton Township, Pennsylvania? Big difference.
I agree with Yusef for one reason. America as a whole, in general, we're way too comfortable. I've been in other countries in Southeast Asia where you cannot drink the tap water. They don't have heating or cooling systems in the building. America, as a general rule, we're way too comfortable to get on that kind of, combined level of foresight to go against a government or anything like that. It's way too comfortable here. Like David was saying, it would have to be like certain sectors that, like in Detroit, Michigan, where y'all have that water issue. Yeah, y'all have a different struggle, but then you got people in Texas, they may have a different struggle. So there's so many different levels of division. Everything would have to be so uncomfortable where just everybody would just be like, okay, like say for instance, before this lockdown, if this was to last another 2 years and no one could get jobs, then maybe we're like what you're saying, we can, Americans as a general whole can be pushed in that militant direction. That as of right now, Americans as a whole, we're way too comfortable. Way too comfortable.
What is that? It's easier to be vulnerable. So if we're way too comfortable and nobody's going to do anything, then I don't need as big a force to do what I need to do.
Yeah.
So if everybody's going to follow and nobody's going to stand up, then what's to say I can't take over a city with 300 men, armed men?
Well, you can.
That's true. Now, that's a good point.
Very easily.
That's a very good point. Because I think for the men in this panel, we all could say maybe on the block we live in, if it really went down, like I'm a reasonable guy, but I'm sure if we all lived in the same apartment building, the 5 of us could run our building. If we just went full monster on everybody, we could run our building. But I don't
just
think that's
know, Yusef.
Go ahead.
A U.S. Special Forces A team is made of 12 people.
The average American only watches
No. Hold on. The average American depends. Like if you talk about the quote unquote ghetto, a lot of people are strapped, and they have experience of being under duress and post-traumatic stress disorder. What's one more person trying to take away their liberty? If you have children, are you going to sit here, you're going to lay down your weapon and say, take my children? I don't know what woman would do that. My mother's vicious. She would say, I'm not getting vaccinated. I don't care what you do. That vaccination here is scaring people here. I don't know where you at, but if you're in a Democratic state like New Jersey or New York, they're passing state legislator A416 that's saying that if we assume you have coronavirus, we're going to kidnap you. And everybody's afraid. You put fear in somebody, they will do what they didn't think they would be able to do.
He's got a point. He's got a point, because if they start saying you're going to vaccinate your kids, folks are going to act a fool. And it won't be black, white. It'll just be in general.
I spoke to a deputy sheriff today. He is afraid of getting vaccinated. He knows he's going to be forced to try to tell people to get vaccinated. He don't want to be vaccinated.
Well, they're gonna take away people's jobs. They're gonna be economic repercussions. That's what they're going to do.
That's where it's going to come from.
Difficult. You're not going to be able to travel. You're not going to be able to go to school.
Yeah, it's going to be rough.
Get a job. So, yeah, it's coming down.
And Yusef, it's not even about whether it's not even about getting into the argument about vaccine, mRNA viruses, mRNA vaccines or not. It's the fact that the government is telling people that you must do something, and that is anti-ethical to American culture. Americans are not used to that.
Now, wait a minute. Jaleel just shared some scary news. Assembly Bill A416 relates to the removal of cases, contacts, and carriers of communicable diseases who are potentially dangerous to the public health. It's in committee.
Hey, when it comes to that law stuff, Jaleel is untouchable, so I can't mess with him with that. I'm gonna have to get better prepared when he comes on.
San Francisco ago, they passed a stay-at-home order indefinitely.
Now that's scary. Indefinitely?
Ago. You can look it up. Pull it up. San Francisco County, stay-at-home order indefinitely. I'm just trying to tell you, I've been reading this stuff, and people are responding.
So let me tell you a story. Like, I'm here in Dallas, Texas. I've seen more cars from California, Oregon, New York, New Jersey, Illinois come into Texas because people don't want to live in those other states. So, like,
Texas.
If I go, like, if me being like a middle-aged white dude goes into the south side of Chicago with a bunch of guys and says, "Hey, you tired of living your shitty life? Pick up a gun and follow me. I can't guarantee you success, but I can guarantee you a life that you can fight for what you got." How many people do you think would follow me?
Well, you know, it's interesting because Texas is, and me and Yusef have had this conversation. This is a topic that people don't want to talk. But you know, Black Americans vote Democrat but move Republican.
Yep.
We're moving to the South in droves. Now, wait a minute. This is the place where we were beaten, slaved, Toby, Kunta Kinte, all of that. But we are voluntarily packing our stuff up and moving to Texas, Georgia, and Florida. Come on.
Yep.
The irony.
How do you know, like, the Northeast, like New York, Boston, Chicago, is more bigoted than the South?
Of course it is. Always Martin Luther King said that when he went to Chicago. Of course it is. Of course it is. And you know why that is, Brent? Because the irony of segregation and racism and out front racism is that it allowed people to get independent. You had Black businesses, Black stores, Black banks. It's unfortunate it had to be that way, but people had a sense of independence and they had what? Land. Mm-hmm. You got it. I don't know, Brent, you probably know this history, but there was a great migration of Blacks from the South to the North for jobs, Henry Ford, jobs, and government programs. And that's how we ended up in these urban ghettos in America. Well, that's how we ended up there. We didn't just voluntarily move to Harlem.
And California. There was a migration to California too. Yes.
And that's how we migrated because the conditions were bad. Now when what I call the business republic, so when the Republican Revolution came, when the Republicans got in the party, and these states like Texas and the southern states, Atlanta was too busy to hate. Businessmen were like, look, whatever racial issues that we have, we need to kind of bottle that up because we need to do business. I want to make money. And Black folks spend money, Asian folks spend money, Chinese spend money, Hispanics spend money. I want to get that money. And business became the overriding principle, and people moved because fundamentally, despite our differences, we want the same thing. We want good families. We want to have place for our safe kids. We want to have good families. We want to have every American, whether they want that house in the suburbs with a Mercedes Benz and a nice manicured lawn. That's what people are running. If you go to Dallas, that's what Dallas is made of suburbs of nice manicured lawns and cars. And it's more interracial than the North and the Northeast. Why? Because business is the overriding principle above everything else. When you take that away, people get tribal. And that's my biggest fear.
It's definitely happening in California. People are leaving California and Joe's because the taxes are just getting outrageous. If you're a business owner and you live in California, like, you know, Elon Musk, he's relocated. Oracle has relocated. They're all going to Texas because the way that California tax laws work, you're pretty much going to be paying half, if not more than half, to your money to the tax man.
Right. If the Green New Deal goes through Washington and the Biden administration, then New York, the highest tax rate in New York, I think is like going to be 62%. 62% of your income is going to go to the government.
Well, as I say, this is a big mess, and unfortunately, it's been exacerbated by, as I say, historical items have not been addressed. As Jalil said, we don't know the history of this country. We don't understand our statuses. We have poor, we have poor mastery of economics, and unfortunately, you have whole swaths of people, irregardless of race, who are literally existing check to check and have no hope and have given up on the entire system. And they're armed, Yusef, with unlimited bullets. What do you think happens?
Whole lot of blood.
Robbery.
Yeah.
It's coming.
So my question is, and this is where I want to start to round the corner as we wrap things up. Well, one thing, Jaleel did provide us with this link about San Francisco extend the stay-at-home order indefinitely.
Oh, come on. Are you serious?
It appears there will be a lot of carryover
let me turn
from
that off.
2020 into the new year.
Look, after the year that we've had, there's no way that you can plan for any downturn, right? We're at rock bottom.
Yeah, it's actually being. I'm scared whenever you have any kind of law that's put in indefinitely. That's a terrifying prospect.
Is that slavery?
It's only terrifying. That's why knowing law will save you no matter where you're at, because you can implement it to protect yourself as well as to do business. That's why I go back
Jaleel, is that
into
slavery?
the
Is an indefinite stay-at-home order? Is that slavery?
I mean,
is an indefinite stay-at-home order slavery? What is that?
I don't think it technically qualifies as slavery because you're not owned as a piece of property.
Okay, I'm just saying if you got, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with these. That law sounds crazy.
It might be kidnapping.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, there's loopholes. Like I said, you just have to go back into the nationality and you have to ask protection under the consulate. Just because you don't know it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I suggest you all look into what I recommended earlier. I was in certain situations. I'm actually living way more comfortable than a lot of other people because I know more than the local policy enforcers or law enforcement officers. I'm teaching them something. So when they try to come and infringe on my rights or my property, before they whip out the gun, I already know their boss. I already know what they're supposed to stand on. I already have their oath of office. I already know that they actually break the code. I can sue them against their bond so they won't be employable. There's a lot of things you can do to put back the fear on their end.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to challenge. I'm gonna have to challenge Jaleel because we know about sovereignty movements in the past. You know, there's the Moors. I know they claim sovereignty. There's other groups that claim sovereignty of law. And we saw Wesley Snipes try to do it with his tax issue.
Yeah.
So what happens when you go to a judge who doesn't recognize none of that?
The thing is, that's where your first step. You don't go to the judge. If you understand the laws of principle, you're supposed to go to a consulate who represents you in an international law, not domestic law. So if you already went that far, you already put yourself in adjudication rather than arguing status, then jurisdiction. So most people are already trying to argue the subject matter, meaning that you already put yourself in persecution and subject to all of their goddamn ordinances. What you're trying to do is operate on a common law. There is no more law. It's called common international law. They do that in Australia. They do that in Great Britain. It also applies here because the United States is the subsidiary of the Great Britain. So go back to treaty law.
Have you guys now, and I'm not, Brent probably can comment more on this. You know that Texas is a member of the Union by treaty. And Alan West, I don't know if you know Alan West, but Alan West used to be a representative. He's a black former U.S. Army Ranger commander. He was briefly a congressman in Florida, and he's now relocated to Texas. And he has argued that this Texas and a few other states separate and become a sovereign union of constitutional states separate from the United States. So is that legally possible?
So the Supreme Court says no. The Texas Constitution, there's a clause in it that it can choose to separate. I mean, but Alan West is head of the Republican Party here in Texas. mean, Colonel West.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a gray area. The Supreme Court says no, but Texas Constitution, there's ways that you can, according to the Texas Constitution. So it's really going to come down to who's willing to fight. If somebody else says, yeah, you are, I'm like, well, try it.
That's deep.
Brother Drees reminded me, because I've got some things cooking behind the scenes. He said, don't forget him. I've got a couple things coming on professionally. He's got a channel. Drees has a channel that's nothing like mine. If you want something interesting, why don't you go check out Drees TV?
Jaleel, do you have a website or YouTube page? Where do you have the stuff at?
Uh-oh.
I think it's froze.
He froze.
The government,
government shut him down.
Let me.
New Jersey shut him down.
Let me do this. Here's something that I see. I see the temperature in the United States being consistently raised. I remember when it was, I believe, Gabby Gifford was shot in the head, and it was an atrocity. I remember last month when they tried to kidnap a politician in Michigan. I was becoming desensitized to that violence. I'm watching people breaking into. Now remember, we're taking this to the extreme, breaking into something in Washington, D.C. What happened when 50 guys decided to break into just their state house? Remember,
that's already happening. That's already happening.
Yeah. What about Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where they burned part of the city down?
Yeah. Well, so now we're in a situation where, remember when it was all over the news when the politicians from Turkey got into a fist fight?
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember the politicians in Turkey got into a brawl. Like, what happens when we become so desensitized to violence? What happens the next time the leaders of government get together and they have to discuss this? Or here's a better question. Do you think they'll say, listen, I'm in an unsafe work environment. Maybe we should start having our meetings in secret. Maybe we shouldn't make it open to the public. Maybe we should meet in places that are not publicly known, underground somewhere, and just tell them what happened.
They kind of already do that.
You know what? I mean, Yusef, if you look at the United States, first thing that I've learned from this pandemic is states have a lot more power than I thought they did. The governor has more influence than we thought he did, than we think. It's a lot harder. The United States federal government has had the appearance of this overriding supreme body, but in reality, it doesn't, because the state can buck the United States, and the only thing the United States can do is threaten it with tax money or some kind of federal grant. It really can't do much else. And so I think what you're going to get is that you're going to get some places that are going to be thriving and some places that are going to be horrible. And you're going to have this, now you're going to have a caste and class system amongst people, but you're going to have class and caste states. And I think that, we can't forget that this is a union of states. And these states can, even though Article 6 of the Constitution talks about supreme law of the federal government, but if they can enforce it. So if a sheriff says in Tarrant County, Texas, I'm not enforcing a mass law, I don't care what you say, what is the federal government going to do? Arrest every sheriff and police officer? No, not much.
So all I'm saying is I need more people like me, you guys, come down here in Texas, because lots of people are coming. So why don't you guys come too? I'm just saying.
Or you could just come to Brazil like me.
We all, you know what, despite our differences, if we can have honest conversations, Brent, despite our differences, if we can have honest, painful conversations and understand that we can live with differences because fundamentally we want the same thing, we can make a lot of advancement in this country. But if people cannot do that, whether they're burning a Wendy's down, looting Target, or invading the White House and taking pictures off the wall, if we can't see our similarities over our differences, we're ass out.
I agree with you.
But when we begin to see that, wait a minute, maybe the enemy is not each other, maybe it's something else, then we can have more in common if we can have difficult, painful conversations without getting all bent out of shape. And unfortunately, what has happened recently is that I don't see any solutions. I don't see any political solution. I don't see any major changes. All I see is, big government going to make more laws to become even bigger and bolder government. And that's going to make people angry. My biggest fear is that my biggest fear is the scapegoating, because people have a tendency to be able to push people in certain directions and scapegoating. And that's a fear because we haven't really addressed these deep fundamental problems in the society. But Yusef, I mean, you're going to just look at it. You're just going to look at a fracture, not a breakup like, oh, we just fall apart in anarchy like Mad Max. But you're going to look at just governors are going to buck. Oh, thank you. Governors are going to buck the United States government and say, what are you going to do about it? The state has the power. I'm totally educated. I was ignorant, but the states have a lot of juice.
The only thing the president can do in that case is declare an insurrection, and then he can use the U.S. military to come in. Other than that, he can't do anything.
There you go.
He can't do anything. He or she, doesn't matter.
So, hey, but fellas, I got to get out of here, but I love talking with you guys. Have a blessing. Be safe. Be careful. Yusef, thank you. And I'll see y'all next time.
See you next time. What I'll wrap up with, and one of the things that I've done is the way that I've been fighting the battle is by putting people together to discuss things like, hey, I put together a Patreon group, and this is a place where I tell people it's less fun, more hard, actionable information on how to change your business perspective, how to change your country perspective. We get together once a month to discuss serious ideas. If any of you are not aware of it, go take a look. I'm not going to read through it all right now, but this has become a group of people that have really started to help each other and be a benefit to each other. We business with each other. We have a lot of information to share from a diverse group of people. And on that note, I think what I'm going to do is say, let's do this. We're going to say goodbye to the public. Brett, Rod, you guys stick behind the camera with me for one quick second, all right?
Okay.
All right, everybody, listen. Thank you. I'm glad you all showed up. Like, share, and subscribe. And the sharing and subscribing part are important. That's how this channel has grown. I'm looking forward to our next chat. This took a lot out of me. So you